What is up, everybody? It is your local Ottawa fan, and I am here today to talk to you about the 4-3 overtime Sens win in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoffs that extends the Sens season, keeps hope alive, and gets us to a Game 5 in Toronto. I'm happy. I'm over the moon. After our first three losses, I talked about the good stuff first. I want to do the opposite. This was a really pivotal win. So let's talk about the stuff that wasn't as awesome. We are down 2 games, and a loss eliminates us. And this win makes it better, but still, we have a long road to climb. We still need to win just for it to have been anything close to a series that people would consider close. And I think I will, if we win Game 6 or Game 5, if we force Game 6, it becomes a close series. You know, if the Leafs beat us in 6 and 2 of their wins came in overtime, you can't say that they walked all over. Like, yes, they had a 3-0 series lead. If it goes to 6 games, it changes the narrative of this series a lot. And then people would say, oh, you know, if the Sens won those 2 overtime games, and they would have, you know, it changes how we would view things, right? I am of the belief that if we lose in 5, it's a gentleman's sweep. It still looks like, you know, a 5-game series where one team had a 3-0 series lead. Yes, 2 of their wins would have come in overtime. Their first win was a blowout where we looked terrible, and they looked like the better team. They looked like the season playoff team, and we looked like the team that hadn't been in the playoffs in 8 years. Then there were 2 close games that they lost and 1 close game that they won, and then they went home in 5. That's what it would be like. Oh, they give them a brief scare, you know, but the scare would have been really Game 3 overtime, where it would have been a fun what if. If we win Game 5, if we win in Toronto, then I think the narrative changes. I'll put it to you this way. I don't think there are too many Leafs fans who, after the Jake Sanderson goal went in, said, oh boy, here we go again. And genuinely, honestly, from the bottom of their heart meant it. I think probably like 90% of Leaf fans are still very confident that Toronto's going to win Game 5 or Game 6. I think most Leafs fans don't even think there's going to be a Game 7. And I think a lot of Sens fans are still worried that there's not going to be a Game 7. If the Sens win Game 5, if Game 7 becomes a possibility in a more real, more genuine way, if Game 6 Thursday night becomes an actual tangible thing, then I think you're going to see a lot more panic on the Leaf side of things. Irregardless of what ends up happening in Game 6, if Game 5 ends with an Ottawa victory, that is when you'll start to see actual panic set in Toronto. That's when you'll actually start to see, you know, everyone say it and mean it, like, oh no, Toronto's doing it again. Right now, I think most people saying, oh, Toronto's doing it again, it's tongue-in-cheek. Because there's still no way, right? Like, okay, they lost the game. There's no way, right? I think that's how most people see it. If you're like me, if you're a true believer, you're like, hey, you know, it ain't over until it's over. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. You do not get to celebrate after Game 3. You have to celebrate once you have that 4th win. And until it happens, it hasn't happened. And you know what? They won 3 in a row. What's stopping us from turning around, doing the same thing, and making Game 7 a winner-take-all game? You know? But there's that. The other thing was we got outshot, if you can believe. The one time we got outshot is the one time we won. I think our strategy in Game 5 should just be let Toronto take as many shots on net as possible in the first period. Let them get like 40 shots, because this way we'll only get like maybe we can't take a shot either. We have to let them go 40-0 in the first period so that we can win 2-1 in overtime. Because I guess getting outshot is the recipe to success in this series, which is very weird and is also a very Ottawa-Toronto thing. You know, getting outshot and also winning is a very Ottawa-Toronto thing. It was definitely a lot tighter than it needed to be at times. But we did it. Some positive. Okay, the biggest positive, I think, other than winning, the biggest positive takeaway I have from this game was our penalty kill, which at one point was actually a power kill, and our start. Our start to the game was very good. Our best start of any game. It's the first time that we got multiple goals in a period. All series. All series. This was our first multi-goal period, and it happened in the first. And it was, you guessed it, a 2-0 lead. Did we squander it? They squandered a 2-0 lead, right, in game 2. Worked out just fine for Toronto. So Tim Stützle starts the scoring off with a beauty of a goal. Tim Stützle, his first ever playoff goal with the Ottawa Senators, his first ever career playoff goal, and it is a great goal, and it gets us on the board. It gets the energy going. Were there more Leaf fans in Game 4 than Game 3? Yes. Was it still a strong majority of Sens fans? Also, yes. Also, yeah, you could tell that, like, okay, that there were a bit more Leafs fans, and if it gets to Game 6, it will be the opposite case. There were a lot of Leafs fans at this game for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, the Leafs had a chance to end the series, and reason number 2, there wasn't as much hope for Ottawa. We hadn't won all series. We'd gone 0-3 to start, and nobody wants to be there to watch your team get swept by your biggest rival. If it gets to Game 6, even if Toronto wins, like, it shouldn't have gotten to Game 6. So I think Game 6 would be a lot more Sens fans than Leafs fans. And if it gets to Game 6, then it would mean that we won back-to-back games, all the momentum is in Ottawa's favor, and now we're back at home with a chance to send it to Game 7. Yeah, that's going to be flooded with Sens fans. And I think most Leafs fans wouldn't want to be there to watch their team potentially blow a 3-0. The same way that there were some Sens fans who probably didn't go to the game because they didn't want to watch the Sens potentially get swept. Not many Leafs fans want to watch the Leafs potentially blow a 3-0 series lead. As the away team, you don't want to be there and have to deal with the home fans mocking you and jeering you in the event that you lose. And I do think that does play a part. Because Sens fans know there's going to be Leafs fans at any game. If we lose this game, there would have been a few rowdy Leafs fans. I saw in the pregame, there were some Leafs fans who went to the game with blue brooms. If we lost in overtime, that would not have been fun for those Sens fans at the game. If the Sens pull it off, like, imagine, allow yourself to imagine with me for a moment. If the Sens pull it off and actually win the series, the only saving grace, the only silver lining for Toronto fans would be that the Sens would have to win the series in Toronto, and there wouldn't be too many Sens fans in the arena to mock you. Because that's actually a reverse sweep is the most embarrassing way to lose this series, like in the playoffs. The second most embarrassing is a regular sweep. You don't want to be there for either of those. And I think that, there would be a lot of nerves if it went to Game 7. I'm not saying it will. You got to take it one game at a time. Like, I can't think about Game 6 and Game 7. It's Game 5. And it's do or die. Game 5. And you got to play Game 5 the same as this. Anyways, so Tim Stützle starts it off. Sanderson's goal was amazing, but my favorite goal of the game was Shane Pinto's goal for 2 reasons. One, I got a soft spot for Shane Pinto. I love pinto beans. It was a beautiful goal. I didn't even notice it got in, and I was like, wow, what a play. I thought that it kind of started the faith of, like, okay, we can do this. Not just in the sense of we can win, but, like, we can score on Stolars. We can make Stolars look not amazing. We can make them look good. Allmark's been good. Good is not one of, especially in tight games. Especially in games going to overtime, where 1 goal is going to be the difference. If your goaltender is a bit more likely to let in 1 goal, and it's going to overtime, don't like your odds very much now, do you? And I think we needed that. It was on the penalty kill. The Leafs have had a deadly power play all series. Every single time they're on the power play, I feel like we blink and the Leafs have scored. And it's been a reoccurring theme of they score on the power play, they score on the power play, they score on the power play. If we took just half as many penalties, this series is a 3-1 lead for Ottawa. Like, the penalty kill was killing us. So to see it become a power kill, for us to not only kill the penalty, but to score shorthanded, if the impossible happens, I think that becomes one of the turning points of the series, even more so than what happened in overtime, because that is the first time where we're like, oh, we can stop their power play. We can make their power play look not so threatening. That's, I think, the thing with this game. This is either a spark or a sputter. Either this is a brief sputter, a brief moment in time where the Sens won a game at home, and it was nice, and it was a happy moment for Sens fans. And then the season ended, but hey, we had that one brief moment in time. A little hiccup in the Leafs series win. A little glimmer in an otherwise tough series for the Sens. Or it's a spark. And this game will be one of the most talked about hockey games for the next decade. This game will be one of the most, and then everything changed games ever. If this is the spark, this will become the new 4-1 in the third. By a mile. By a country. Okay, by a country the size of Canada. It would eclipse every other playoff. If this is a spark, every other playoff embarrassment that the Leafs have ever suffered would be put to complete shame. And if this is a spark, I think that would be the turning point. The point that the Sens scored on a Maple Leafs power play. You mean the power play that has buried the Sens time and time again? You gotta remember, yeah, game one, yeah, you can take away all the power play goals and they're just fine. Game two and game three, both games where Toronto won in overtime and had a power play goal. You do a little bit better on the penalty kill. You kill those penalties, you win in regulation. Now, of course, then the argument becomes, well, then you got to wipe away the Sens power play goals and whatnot. But the point still stands of, at least the Sens power play hasn't looked nearly as deadly. Where it's like, okay, yeah, sure, we would have scored a few, but we haven't been scoring on, more than half of our power plays. You would think that, after game one, it would have been no one else is allowed to go in the box or they're off the team kind of deal. And no, we got burned and we got burned. I think that Pinto goal is the moment where it was okay, we can kill a penalty. And maybe that's foreshadowing not just what happened in this game, but maybe the series. And if not, well, I'm glad it happened this game. Toronto does get it within one at the end of the first. It's 2-1. Okay, it's a lead. It's the first time we scored 2 goals before the Leafs did. Every single time they scored the second goal before us. Every single time. And then Toronto ties it. I thought that, Allmark had played good in other games, but not good enough. This game, he actually was impressive. Over 900 for the first time all series. So I'm not going to get too mad about the goals again, especially we won, and we won on not too many shots. And there's another reason why, and it's Allmark's performance in overtime saved the season and kept the series alive. So I'm not going to talk about too in depth about the goals. But one other thing that was different in the third period, David Perron scores. It is our first game with 3 or more goals. Again, all series, we've gotten 2 goals. Exactly. Without fail. 6-2, 3-2, 3-2. We finally got over that hump of only scoring 2 goals. We finally got over the hump of only scoring 1 goal at most in a period. And look at I felt like it feels very Ottawa Charge-esque, right? You know, where, hey, they scored 4 goals, they won the game. Like, they scored 3 goals, they won the game. Maybe that's the magic number, for us at least. The other thing is they forced overtime. The 2 other games that went to overtime, like I said, Toronto scored the second goal first. We scored the goal that tied it up and sent it to overtime. This time we had the lead, and I gotta admit it, I was kind of feeling towards the end of the third, up 3-2, next goal wins. And what did I mean by that? I was thinking, like, if the Sens score another goal and it's 4-2, like, lights out. We're winning this game. If, next goal, if there is one, wins. If we just hold the fort, obviously we win 3-2, and that's great and wonderful. But I was like, the Leafs are playing a good third period. I was really worried that if they scored, tied the game, that all the momentum would shift in Toronto's favor. And they scored. They tied the game. They forced overtime. And in that overtime, the series ended. The series ended when Drake Batherson took a double minor 4-minute high sticking call. That was when you mark the time of death. That is when it was over. The Toronto Maple Leafs score, win game 4 in overtime, 4-3, final score, and the Sens get swept. That's what should have happened. Any other team would have done that. Any other team not named the Toronto Maple Leafs for sure ends this series. Then any team that had that kind of a power play against us all series and has that opportunity in overtime to sweep us, sweeps us. And you see what I mean? It's like, this could just be a sputter. This could just be, and then we lost game 5, and who cares? And that's why it's like, I get that it's the Leafs. It's also a 3-0 series deficit. But also, it's the Leafs not scoring on that power play, it feels like the kind of thing that a week from now, Steve Dangle would still be angry about. Feels like if they, because you got to think back to the other times that they blew it, where it was like, things were fine. That happened and people were upset about it, but it was still okay, yes, they had a really good overtime in game 5 against Montreal. Too bad they didn't win, but it's fine. They've got game 6. This series is still over. They aren't gonna blow 3-1. And then afterwards, there's the in-depth analysis of what went wrong in game 5 to lead to this collapse. There's now it's 4-2 and who cares? It's 4-2. We're fine. This game's over. We're going to the second round. And then afterwards, it's how did that goal spark what Boston did? And this could be that kind of a moment if things work out. This would be the thing that Toronto sports media would highlight and spotlight and say, this was a big turning point. Oh man, they should have scored on that power play and they didn't. And that was the best our penalty kills looked all series. And Allmark stood on his head multiple times. There were a lot of times in overtime where I was my heart sank because I thought it was over. And I was like, wait, how did that not go in? How is this series still alive? And then on a clearing attempt, Jake Sanderson holds the line, snipes it, he roofs it, top shelf, scores, wins the game in overtime. After the first 2 games, I was starting to dislike playoff overtime. This game reminded me why it is so magical. The elation. We aren't swept. We're going to game 5. We're still alive, and we play like a team with nothing left to lose. Play like that again. On Tuesday. You got nothing to lose. Nothing. Play your hearts out. If we win game 5, I have no notes for the season. I'd say, tough start to the playoffs, but you got right back into the series. And then even if the series doesn't go our way, ultimately, like, you took your licks. It's your first time back. If we lose, then I'll be a bit more like, well, we won a game, but also it was like a gentleman's sweep. If we win game 5, in my books, that is a win for the long-term health of this team. For this was a good test. And even if we don't win in this small sense, it would be a losing the battle to win the war type of deal. A good test where you get your back up against the wall, and if twice with your backs against the wall, you live to see another day, and then on the third or fourth time it doesn't work out, I can't be mad. I can say, you know what? Now you know what the playoffs is like, and you know what it's like to fight to survive, and that is huge. If we lose game 5, then it's a bit more like, some concern. But this was a great moment after 8 years to finally get that Ottawa Senators playoff win, an overtime win. After 3 straight playoff overtime losses. In terms of overtime games in the playoffs, yeah. There's the 2 Leafs ones. There's that other one that we do not talk about. Finally, it went our way, and we won. And now we get another game. We get another game. And I can't complain about that. And as always, and hopefully for a little bit longer, but for at least one more game. Go, Ottawa, go!